Hi and welcome back. So in this session I'm just going to go through a few things to extend on what we did in the last session, and a few of the trim tools. We're also going to look at the Marquee and how we can use that in our drawings, and the saved views which are in here, and not only how we can use those to sort of automate our workflow, but also just to make our general workflow a lot more efficient. Okay, so let's start off with editing an element. Okay, so once we've drawn an element, and I will go through these settings in a little bit more detail, we can select that element, and as we saw in the last session, we can do things like grab the end node here and move it around. Okay, you'll notice that this is called the pet palette, is context sensitive, so it depends on where you click. So for example, if I click on the line here, you'll see we've got an option to add an extra point. Okay, or we could curve an edge out. Okay, so we've got a lot of control here on what we can do. Okay, I can change, if I go and do that, it will add a point. A little tip for you actually. If you want to get rid of a point, you can actually just drag it to its neighbour and it will disappear. So if I go and add, for example, 2 points in here, and I went, oops, I didn't want that one, just grab him, move him to his neighbour, and he will disappear. Cool. Oops. Except for when it's the end point anyway. Alright, so we've got lots of ways of dealing with it. Notice that if I go to here, it will turn it back into a straight line. We can also do one that's parallel to this, so it comes off at the right angle. Bam! Cool, so that will be nice little curve into that. So that pet palette is incredibly handy. If I click on the edge, I can also do things like move this. If I want to move it in a straight line, I can hold down the shift key. Okay, so it's going to move 90 degrees, depending on whatever angle I want it to be. Okay, and I can actually, there we go, so we'll go running 90 degrees, and I can actually go over here and go, well, actually I want it to line up with this point here, okay, or this point here. So while you're holding that shift key, you can move your cursor around and snap to other points. Okay, so if I snapped to that point, I could then extend this out and it would come to that point like that. Alright, we've got a few other little controls up here. So we've got the trim tool, which I think did I show that? I think I showed that in that last session. So you can click on that. It's the same actually as holding down the command key on the Mac. I think on the PC it's holding down the control key. But yeah, maybe you can add a comment down below if I'm wrong. So yeah, so we can trim to anything. It's going to trim basically to wherever that line intersects. Okay, so if I don't want this section here, I can trim those, and they will trim to this line. Okay, so remember it's the reference line that it's trimming. If you're not sure where that reference line is, you can go View, on screen, View Options, Wall and Beam Reference Lines, and you can actually see not only where the reference line is, but which direction it's travelling in. Alright. Okay, so we can adjust these lines using the pet palette. We can do things like rotations. Okay, so if I want to rotate, I'm choosing the point of rotation, and then what I'm basically saying is I want this line to be horizontal. Cool. So if we wanted to rotate everything around this point here, I can select it. And we're going to go and rotate it, so we can click on it and you'll see here's the rotation. I can say I want you to rotate around the central point here. If I hover over here, it'll actually highlight the center, and I can say I want this point here to be directly above my center of rotation. Alright, we've actually also got the ability, if we wanted to do a copy of it, I can actually select it. Again, I'm just going to hover over there, there's that center point. Go and click on there. If I touch the Option key, I can then get a little plus. Okay, and in fact, yeah, if I go on the Mac, sorry, I don't know what the keyboard shortcut is, Option Command, it's probably Alt Control. You'll see I've got 2 pluses. What that means is with I can go click, 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 and I just, every time I click, I'm clicking a new copy of it. I'm just going to undo, 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 undo. Okay, 1 plus will just do a copy. Okay, 2 pluses will mean that every time you click, you'll create a new copy of it. Really handy if you're doing like trees or something like that. You know, you can grab something, and yeah, we could, you know, have lines. Works really well with this distance thing as well, of course, because it means that, yeah, for example, if I go move, and I go Option Command, and I hover over something, I can go and put them every meter along that line. Okay, not exactly the greatest example, but you get the idea. Okay, we've also got here a little axe, so we can axe stuff. So basically what that means is if I select something and I grab my axe and I draw a line through it, it gives me a little eyeball here, which basically means which side you want to keep selected. So maybe I want to select this side and I want to, I don't know, change it to a different type of wall. Okay, so maybe it's not linked in the height and it's only 1000 high. Cool, so if I go to my 3D view now, oops, you will see somewhere around here, we go for a little walk. There should be a wall, there it is. That's only 1 meter high. Okay, so it's the same wall, but I've split it and then changed the height of one side of it. I could change the material, I could change all sorts of things. Maybe I wanted to delete it, so I could delete that. Actually, it's a nice little segue. When we're in the 3D view, you can actually edit a lot of stuff here in the same way. So if I go and click on a node, again, I get a little, a pet palette pops up, and I can make this wall longer, or I can change the height of it. Okay, I can even snap to items around it, so I can make it the same height. And I can even go and press D, and I'm going to say 500. Okay. And it's now 500 high. Alright. We have got controls again. If we go and select on the edge of it, we've got different controls. Okay, we can even add extra points. We can make these, we can move the whole thing. We can make this point, where is it? It must be that one there, is it? Can't actually get the node now. Oh, there, see that? That's the point there that I want. I can move that point so that it touches over there instead. Okay, so there's a lot of control that we get within the program to edit elements. Okay, you can even angle this out. How's that for crazy? Alright, okay. So there's a lot of control that we get from that pet palette. Alright, I'm just going to go function F2 again. If you're on the Mac, you can actually set it up so that in your system preferences, I think it's under keyboard, you can actually set up so that the function keys stay as function keys. So if you do that, you'll have to hold down the function to adjust like screen brightness or something like that, but then you don't have to hold down the function key to go F1, F2, F3, etc. I might actually do that because it's getting a little bit frustrating. Alright. Okay, let's talk about the Marquee tool. So the Marquee tool is a very underutilized tool, in my opinion. A lot of people don't even realize that it does anything. And I kind of get it, because you do a marquee, it's like, well, what the hell's that doing? You know, I can move the marquee around, but it doesn't actually seem to be doing anything. And what's the difference between, you know, just selecting something? If I press escape, eventually I get rid of that marquee, okay? So, yes, it is a little bit confusing. Okay, first of all, let's just start off with some basics. When you go to select everything, so on the PC you go Control A, or on the Mac you can go Command A, and it's going to go and select all. Okay. If I go to actually the Wall tool and then I go Command A, it will select all walls. This is incredibly handy. It means that if I want to adjust all of my walls in my entire drawing, I can go and select all of my walls and then go through and change a setting. And it will change it for everything, or everything I have selected at least. Now what happens though if I just wanted the walls in this area? Now yeah, I could sit there and go and select, and holding down Shift key I can add to my selection. If I actually turn my groups on, it'll probably make it a little bit easier. I'll probably get it in one fell swoop. No. But you can still see it's a little bit frustrating. You imagine what happens if there was loads of stuff in this drawing. There was like, all the plumbing and pipes and furniture and slabs and walls on top of walls and who knows what. So this is where the marquee tool can be very handy. Now we've got 3 options for drawing a marquee. We can do a poly marquee, which basically means I can just sit here and draw a shape. In this case I'm just going to draw right around this. Okay, and if I go Command A, it's going to select everything inside that marquee. Okay, so if I had a column in there, and I go Command A, it's going to select everything. Sorry, I pressed Escape too many times. It will select everything, including the column. Okay, so Command A selects everything inside the marquee. So I press Escape once, and it will undo a deselect, but my marquee is still there. If I go to columns now and go Command A, it will select all the columns inside my marquee. Okay, or I could go to walls. Now I can actually, if I go Command A again, it's going to add to the selection. Okay, until I hit Escape. So that can be very handy. Another really handy thing with the marquee tool is that if you go and press F4, okay, or F5 on the Mac, oops, that's right, I've changed my function key setup, so now I just have to press the function key. It shows me just what's inside the marquee. Now this will actually do a cross section through stuff as well. Okay, so for example, I'm going to just throw a slab in here. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a marquee, just a square marquee in this case, right like that, and go function F4, F4, now that I've gone and changed my function keyboard shortcuts, it's made everything a bit more awkward, believe it or not. F4, and you can see it's gone and just sliced through everything. This is really handy because you can kind of see, whoops, I've made mistakes here, my concrete slab should really go underneath my walls. Okay, so yes, I could actually grab this edge, see this is the offset edge, and I can actually snap to that point and it will now extend that edge out past that wall. So there's actually a lot of really handy things that you can do at this level. Those snaps, I can't stress how important it is to always snap things to the correct points. It makes life so much easier. If you just eyeballed that, there will be a slight difference there, and then when you go and do cross sections or detailed drawings, all of a sudden you notice all of these little mistakes you've got. Or the worst one is when you go and dimension stuff and you end up with these weird dimensions that just don't add up, and it's because you'd never snapped to the elements you should have. Alright, if I just go and do, I've got nothing selected now, so if I do F4 again, the rest of the drawing shows up. Okay, so yes, I could go through and just like keep going around and say, whoopsies, that there isn't really in the right place. Why can't I get out of my view? Yeah, so yes, I could move that point so that it lines up with that, then I have to do the other corner as well. In this case, it's actually easier just to project that whole edge out. Alright, so back to the 2D view. So that's the marquee tool. So yeah, it is very handy for isolating parts of your drawing, especially doing selections and taking things through to the 3D view. Now, one thing that I also see people doing is switching things on and off. We haven't talked about layers or anything like that. I will talk about that in a later session. But a really handy tool, again, totally underutilized, is this palette on the right hand side. I've forgotten what they call it now. I think it's called the Navigator or something like that. And here we've got our what they call the project map. So this is where all the data lives. If I delete any of this stuff, it will be gone. Okay, so if I delete story 1, no more story 1, everything that was on story 1 is gone. Over here though, a saved view, so I can create these and delete these and do whatever I like with them. I'm not going to actually be getting rid of any of my building data. Okay, you can remember this is a BIM, so it's a building information model. All of that information is stored, yes, over here, but these are views of that information. That last one we'll do in another session. Are our layouts. So this is like the AutoCAD's version is called paper space. Okay, so we can save views and then we can drop those saved views onto layouts. I mean, we can actually grab these and drop them straight onto a layout as well, but the saved views will store a whole bunch of information, and they're actually really handy just for creating. So I've got a meeting coming up. They're also really handy just for organizing your drawing. So for example, before, right, we took through something into the 3D view, and it was a little bit of a process. I had to go through and select things and bits and pieces. So what would be quite handy is if I could save a view of that. So let's go, we're just going to do a real basic one, and I'm going to do this actually in the 3D view, which is kind of starting at the, well, it's not really the deep end, it's not that difficult, but you can see that I can go into a position, so it might be cool. This is the position I want. Okay, so I can go pop this open, go to my save views. Oh, this has changed a little bit. How do I go and create a new saved view? Show. Okay, that was weird. Okay, so yeah, I actually had to go in there and say show navigator. This is the full version of that sidebar. There you go, I just learned something new about ArchiCAD 23. And we're going to save this current view, okay? I'm actually going to give it a name. I highly recommend you name it, because otherwise you're just going to end up with a whole bunch of generic perspectives. I'm just going to call it view 1. Okay, obviously if it was view from balcony or something like that, would be quite handy. Now it's going to save a whole bunch of stuff, so including the layer combination that was switched on at the time. We've also got the scale, although completely irrelevant with the perspective view. What it's going to show, there's a whole bunch of settings in here. I'm not going to go into too much detail with it. I'm sure there's lots of stuff in the manuals about it. But I do want to bring your attention to this 3D window, and also we've also got other options here for how it's going to shade it. So it's quite a lovely little tool, this, right? So let's keep it simple at this stage. We're just going to save that view and go create. Cool. And you'll see down here we've got something called view 1. So that means, now this is what I find really handy, is that I can actually go through here, right? And if I go and move around, oops, move around, I don't want to see that again, but do spend some time just getting used to what all these controls are in here. You'll probably see it popping up on my screen when I move around. But yeah, they are quite handy. If you've done any sort of first-person type games, you already know how it works. Okay, so I'm going to save this view now, and this is going to be called view 2. Cool, go create. And so here's view 1, and here's view 2. I just have to double click on it to get to those places. If we'd used like the function key, the F4 or F5 on the PC to isolate stuff, oops. Okay, and I go and save that view. Cool, we'll call that view 3. Cool, so now we've got view 1, view 2, and view 3. Okay, so really convenient. This means that you can, sorry, I've got a problem with my headphones. Yeah, it means that we can quickly and easily move around our saved views, and it's going to store everything that we saw at the time. Now what's really cool, of course, is that we can actually, if you go into this, right, we can go to the view settings, pops this back open. I could change it to a photo rendering window. Cool. And it will render out that view. So now when I want to get that 3D view re-rendered, I can just double click on it and it will re-render the view. And then I could go and save it as a JPEG. Later on I'll show you how we can actually go and publish all of this, so that it will automatically re-render everything and export a PDF with your entire documentation. Or perhaps it's just a subset of just all of your rendered images as TIFFs going to a particular folder for someone to go and lay out in a brochure. If they link to those, we can even sit there, go publish, it spits those out. The person who's done the layout can open up their InDesign document, for example. All the links would be up to date with all the latest renders without anybody actually having to do much other than hit publish. So yeah, so it's an incredibly powerful thing using these save views, because you can actually use these later on for your outputs. It also keeps consistency, so you're always getting the same angle every time for that same render. So I could go and change this, and it will line up. If I wanted to Photoshop before and after, or different materials or something like that, it's always going to have exactly the same angle. They'll Photoshop over the top of each other. Yep, I'm just going to change this back to a 3D window. Cool, so now when I go, bam, oh my gosh, I'm just going to close some of these. Alright. Okay, in the 2D view, this is also really handy. So if I'm going to save a view here, so I'm going to say, cool, this is my ground floor. I'm going to call this all. Okay, so it's going to basically, it's just showing all. I'll put a 1 on after just for my own enjoyment. We've got the units that the dimensions appear in. It's got what layers we're on and all that sort of carry on. So we can go create. So now what's quite convenient is, let's say I wanted to go around, and I don't know if I've switched layers on and off. I haven't talked about layers yet. I want to, but if I had switched a layer off, then I can just double click on here and we'll actually go and switch all the layers on that was present in that view. Okay, so we can go to palettes, quick layers, and this allows us to just switch layers on and off really quickly. So for example, if I grab this this slab here, I can say hide other layers. Interesting. The other layers aren't switching off. Why is that? Well, let's have a look. What layer are we on? Structural bearing. Everything is on the same layer. How did that happen? It used to have different layers for these sort of things. Anyway, so let's go and change this. Let's say that this is going on the... Oh wow, they've actually changed a lot of the layers. So let's go and create some layers. So I'm going to create a new layer called walls. Okay. So now if I go walls, select all, I can select that and go walls. Whoa, I've got 3 L's in my walls. Cool, and now I can go hide others. Cool, and everything except for my walls hide. Cool. And then what I can do, if I go and save this as a view, cool, we'll call this view 2. Oh, so what is oh no, what's this? This will be just walls, right? And I can go all, everything pops up. Interesting. When I created this layer, walls didn't exist. Okay, the walls layer didn't exist. So I need to update this layer. And what I need to do is actually just go and switch everything on. So I can go to my quick layers and go all layers hidden. And if I switch this around, all layers are visible again. Awesome, so now I can see everything. So now what I need to do is update this view. So if I go to the view settings, I can actually go in here and then just go get current window settings. Ding! And go OK. And so now here's just walls and here's all. Cool, just walls, all. Okay, so it will save all of those layer settings. Another thing that I do quite often, so let's say I want to see just this area here. So what I'll do is I'll save a view and see what it says here, the zoom. I want the current zoom. You just have to switch this off, ignore zoom and rotation when opening this file. So I'm going to get to save the current zoom. So that means that now I can go all. Actually, we didn't save the zoom on that. So even if I was over here, if I go to ground floor, it will automatically go straight to that courtyard. In fact, we should always name it, shouldn't we? Courtyard. Okay. And so now, no matter what I'm doing, even if I had layers switched off, so if all layers were completely switched off, and I want to get back to that courtyard, I just double click on courtyard and bam, I'm back on the courtyard, all the layers are switched on and I'm ready to rock. Okay. With this one here, maybe if I go into here I can go view settings and I can say actually for this one I want you to fit it in the window and don't ignore the zoom. Cool. So that means that now here's courtyard and here's all, and all will always fit everything into view. So if I go and pop a wall out here, okay, here's courtyard, here's all, it will fit that into the view. If I get rid of that, hit delete, go all, it fits it in the view. While we're talking about these views, down the bottom left corner, this is quite handy as well. This will actually go through all the previous views. So this is really handy, especially when you're working in small areas and you're kind of popping in and out. So I can go and zoom in on the area that I want. So I'm just using the scroll wheel. And then if I want to go back to the previous view, I can click there and then I can go and pop back and forth. And you can even actually, so if I wanted to go and snap a wall so that it touches this point here, I can even do that part way through drawing. Cool. Alright, I haven't got much time left, but I think I've covered everything I was going to cover anyway. So it's awesome. Alright, so yeah, in the next session I'm hoping to talk about all of the walls and the wall settings, and I'll work my way through a lot of these. I'm not sure how many I'll do in one single session, but it should be fun. Anyway, till next time. Bye.